This is the Range Rover SV Coupe, a large three-door performance SUV that Land Rover showed off back in 2018. It was set to have a limited production and would have been the most powerful Land Rover yet, and in my opinion the ugliest. Jokes aside, you've probably never heard of the SV Coupe because Land Rover cancelled it before production even began. The company did this because apparently production costs for the SV Coupe would have been too expensive. Today I'll be talking about these kinds of cars, the vehicles that never even started production, the cars that were cancelled before production. I reckon that we should start with a cancelled model that isn't very well known. The Saab 96X. This crossover SUV was penned as the successor to the 97X, a rebadged Oldsmobile Bravada which had flopped horribly. The 96X wasn't much better than the 97X though, as it was also supposed to be a product of lazy badge engineering, this time being a twin of the Subaru B9 Tribeca, making the Swedish crossover the second Subaru after the 92X, a rebadged Impreza. The 96X's development soon was unexpectedly halted in 2005 when GM, Saab's owner at the time, sold its stake in Subaru's parent, Fuji Heavy Industries, and therefore, because of Saab's new crossover getting cancelled, we, by which I mean the public, didn't know what the 96X was going to look like. It was like that until 2011 when a prototype of the cancelled crossover was added to the exhibitions of the Saab Museum in the company's home place of Trollhättan. That year, Saab also confirmed that they were developing a new version of the 96X to be based on the then new 94X, although this never happened because Saab went bankrupt later that year. So with that, the ill-fated story of the 96X ends, which honestly isn't that bad. After all, if you were to look in retrospect at the 96X's brutal development, you would probably see that this car would have been as bad and lazy as the other offerings Saab had at the time. Moving on, we now have a car that's rather interesting. In 1994, Porsche approached the Chinese government and showed them a prototype of a cheap family saloon called the C88. It was envisioned as the people's car of China and was supposed to begin what could have been the Chinese automotive revolution that ended up coming years later. The C88 was also supposed to bring Porsche, which was and still isn't known for its affordability, a big sales success. This car would have obviously been by far Porsche's least powerful vehicle, with a 1.1 litre flat 4 under the bonnet, producing just 68 brake horsepower. But speed and power wasn't what Porsche wanted to achieve with the C88. Instead, the company wanted to make the C88 as economical and affordable as possible. The C88 was distinct from the rest of Porsche's offerings in its own silly way. That's what I like about the C88, that being its quirks and its weirdness. With all that said, despite the car's redeeming qualities as an affordable vehicle for the masses, the Chinese government cancelled the whole People's Car project in 1995. And it wasn't just Porsche that pitched the prototype to China. Mercedes-Benz was also hoping to win a contract with China when they pitched the Family Car China concept, which would eventually become the A-Class. Unlike Mercedes' concept, the Porsche C88 never turned into a proper production car and therefore ended up getting cancelled, which is too bad because I quite like the C88. As I said before, this wasn't the only four-door saloon that Porsche cancelled, as there was also the 989, which was supposed to be a comfortable yet fast saloon to rival the likes of BMW's 5 Series and Mercedes' S-Class. The 989 never entered production, although I guess you could say that this prototype influenced the design of the Panamera, which ended up being the first proper 4-door Porsche. And so, seeing as Porsche did finally make a 4-door saloon, the C88 and 989 did get a true spiritual successor. I think our next car is one that is probably recognizable, that being the Rover P6BS. The P6BS, otherwise known as the Leyland 8 GE, was a vehicle designed to be quite distinct from Rover's other offerings. It was supposed to be a 3-seater, mid-engined sports car based on the P6 Saloon. The P6BS began development as a sportier derivative of the P6 that was to be powered by a Buick V8, hence the BS acronym in the vehicle's name, which stood for Buick Sports. That Buick V8 would have had 185 hard-working horsepowers that propelled the car forward, which essentially made the P6BS a supercar, at least during the late 60s when it was being developed. Everything about the car, such as the engine and the power output, and even its outlandish design, would have made for a truly British, or should I say British, supercar, and it probably would have been released, but Rover had other plans. In a truly British fashion, Rover decided to instead focus on more mainstream cars, such as the then upcoming SD1. This basically meant that the P6BS was no more. It wouldn't be released, but at least we still have a prototype of it. It can be found in the British Motor Museum, and I even managed to get a picture when I visited it last summer. So I guess the P6BS still lives, although only in prototype form? I don't know anymore. To end today's video off, we have to go back to the year of 1977. That year, engineers at Volkswagen showed a prototype to the company's officials. That prototype was none other than the Passat GTI, a 3-door performance-oriented version of the regular Passat, made to capitalize on the Golf GTI's success. Join the Golf GTI as another one of VW's people cars turned speedy beasts. The Passat GTI was going to be powered by the same 1.6 litre fuel-injected unit that was hidden under the hood of the Golf GTI. Engineers extensively tested the Passat GTI on public roads to the point of them truly falling in love with the car. And I don't blame them. A family saloon combined with a feisty engine was a great material for a match made in heaven, which was already shown by fellow German firm BMW with the 2002 a decade earlier. Despite the Passat GTI's nearly guaranteed success, VW's executives weren't too sure about the idea of a sporty family saloon and turned down the project. This was unfortunate, as it was shown by the first generation BMW M5 the following decade that a sporty family saloon does indeed work. Now we shouldn't get sad about the Passat GTI never coming into being, as it did get a spiritual successor in the form of the Passat R36, which was a sporty version of the Passat with a 3.6 litre engine producing a whopping 296 brake horsepower propelling it forward. This isn't the only performance Passat, and the Americans ended up getting a GT version of the Passat. If you're a European viewer, then keep in mind that the American Passat isn't the same thing as our European variant. The American Passat GT was shown off back in 2016 with the 3.6 litre VR6 engine getting used until 2018 when it was replaced by a turbocharged 4-cylinder. Going aside from the engine, It's honestly too bad that VW never made a European version of the Passat GT, but that's a topic for another video. Summing up the whole story of the Passat GTI, this was a car that probably would have entered production if it wasn't for the doubt of VW's officials. At least we did eventually get a couple of different sports derivatives of the Passat. Maybe, just maybe, the Passat GTI was actually the friends we made along the way? Who knows? With all that said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, why not like and subscribe? This was Autofill here with you. See you later.